So here is a quick run through of my process on cleaning the various point cloud selections that we've got. Excuse me, whilst I'm just tidying up here. So we have the full cloud here. What I tend to do is I go to the plugin and I choose the CSF filter. I always enable steep slope and I enable slope processing. I start at a very low number initially. If I have a lot of time, I'll start at 0.1. And my threshold I would set at double my resolution if it's a steep sloping site. If it's a flat undulating site, then I might make it the same as my resolution. Here I've done 0.2 for my resolution and 0.4 for my threshold, and I hit OK on that. What that has done is this initial process here, which is to take my base full cloud and split it into ground points and off ground points. So you can see it's already successfully managed to separate some of the spindly tall trees out on the margins and some of the tops of the tussock. You can see we're in quite a valley. It hasn't at this stage over selected any data, but it still has left the tops of some buildings and some other bits and pieces, and obviously there is still, looking at this, quite a lot of vegetation that I would call well above ground. So then we highlight the next ground points, we go back to the CSF filter, and we double our values, this time making it 0.4 and 0.8, and we hit go again. It takes a little while, and that's why I have done this in advance. So after that, we would then end up with the next stage. So we would have all of these off-ground points still saved to one side, and we would just be splitting the residual ground points from the previous run. And that would then start removing some of these, which I think is still successfully not ground. We've got the tops of a building there, tops of a building there, and if I look at the residual ground, yeah, there's nothing too badly culled there. We haven't lost any of the sharp edges on what is a cut and fill platform, but we do still have the top of the building. So again, we take that ground point and we do another filter, this time at 0.8 and 1.6. And that means that the result this time is, again, we've got taken the ground points off to one side. We have over selected slightly. We have managed to gain a stockpile of soil. But otherwise, we have still managed to successfully remove primarily vegetation. In fact, I might just lasso that back out if it was me now and put this back into the ground model. If I was to carry on going, eventually we get to a point where we're oversampling the ground. So I'll show you what the next one would be if we carried on at that. And you can see at this point that it has unfortunately started to be too coarse for the kind of model that we're talking about. And we're now over selecting the ground. And this would be quite an arduous job to go and manually pull all of these sections of ground or nominally low ground back into the model. So I'm not happy with that. I'm going to hit delete on that. And what I'm going to show you here is all of the off-ground data now looks like this. Yep, this is all the off-ground data. And to a certain extent, I could throw that away now. I might here just add an empty group and I'd take all the off-ground data and I'll just drag that into that folder for safekeeping. Now, I actually have between this ground point here and all of these off-grounds, I don't need this data here and this data here because they are represented in the data set already there. So I get left with ground points nominally, except anybody can look at this and say, okay, well, you've still got a lot of ground points that are containing vegetation. It's not perfect, and this is the algorithm that I go through. So from here, what I do is a different trick. I go to my ground points, and I go and I create a projection raster. And I'll deliberately make quite a coarse projection, maybe at 1 meter centers. And I'm picking the minimum point only. I'm not resampling the input cloud, and I'm leaving the interpolating space empty. I'll update that grid, and I'll export that cloud. Okay, so now we have what is starting to become ground, but at the same time, I've thrown away quite a lot of potentially useful data. So I'll take that again, and I'll do